Hi there and welcome to another video of gtmtraining.com with me, Julian, and today we want to talk about the DOM element variable. These little videos are as always brought to you by my course on Google Tag Manager. And then if you head over to gtmtraining.com/YouTube, you'll be able to sign up to a free trial which gives you access to the first week of this 4-week course. And in this course you will learn from the ground up how to use Google Tag Manager effectively. Now let's get into today's topic, which is the DOM element variable. And this is really just one method of scraping content from a site and transferring it to your marketing tools. What do I mean by that? Well, if you look at a website that you have Google Tag Manager installed and you have an element that you want to transfer over to your marketing tools, like for example this price on this product page, then you have different methods available to transfer this price into Google Tag Manager and then pass it on to your marketing tools. The most robust option here would be to build a data layer where you include this price, and it would be very easy with a data layer variable to then grab this price from the data layer and transfer it onto your marketing tools. But we want to explore today another option which comes close to scraping, so we are going right into the document object model and transferring the price from the actual HTML markup. Now the obvious downside is if the markup changes somehow, this method won't work anymore and you need to refine it. So it's more prone to errors in that way. But let's get started exploring the DOM element variable. You'll find it in Google Tag Manager in your Google Tag Manager account under variables. And when you define a new variable, you'll have the DOM element variable to your disposal. So let's click on that and let's name it appropriately. We want to pull out the product price. And we could either choose a method of ID or CSS selector. Now, since we're working here with the document object model, we can look into the document object model by right-clicking on our page and going to Inspect Element in Google Chrome, which will open up the developer tools. And the first screen that pops up here is already the HTML markup, where we can see the document object model and find our price. You can also select the element that you want to pull out by going to the inspector tool and finding out if you want to, for example, get the product title by clicking on it, and it will select the right element. But we want to go here with our price, which is in an element, but unfortunately it doesn't have an ID which is unique to this element, so we won't be able to use our ID option here, but we have the CSS selector option, which can be really powerful. Choose this and we need to input a element selector. So what do we put in here? Well, given that you know CSS and how to select an element through CSS, you probably understand the different notations that we have down here and how to use them correctly. Now the element that we have selected has a span.amount as a CSS selector, and before we input it into our Google Tag Manager variable, I want to actually try this out via JavaScript and try to select this element. So let's go to console here and input a method that would select the right element for us. So let's go with document query selector all, which will match up any CSS selector that I put into the parentheses here. So let's try this out. Let's go with our span.amount. And we see all the different elements that have these traits. and we see there's more than one. So once we hover over them, we can actually see that, for example, up here we also have a span.amount. So there are a lot of different prices on the page, so we need to further refine our CSS selector. And we can look back into our elements here, and we see that this element is actually a child of the element p class price. So let's use that to refine our CSS selector. Let's go back to our console, and when we press the up arrow, you can see the last inputted function, and we'll just refine this to say we want to select all of the p elements with the class price. And now we have two objects left. One would be the strike price here of 15 and 12, so we need to even refine it even more. Let's go back into our elements, and we see, okay, our span.amount is actually a child of the ins tag here. So let's put this also in our tag at the right place. And we see that only one element is left, and which is our price, and that would be enough to put into our variable. So let's copy our last string here and input that into our Google Tag Manager variable as the element selector. Now we can leave the attribute name free because there's no attribute with this element, and create. Now, in order to see if this all worked correctly, let's go into the preview and debug mode. Reload our page. Let's close the developer tools here. And our debug console pops up, where we can see the variables. Now we need to first click on a event where this variable most likely be available. I would say the DOM ready, because the document object model has already loaded. And we go down here, and now we see product price is £12. So our DOM element variable works, and we could transfer the product price, for example, into an event or a tag, or pass it on to a retargeting pixel. And that's already it with this week's video. I hope you found it useful and know now how to use the DOM element variable effectively. If you want to find out more about scraping and advanced techniques of how to use this variable, then check out the course at gtmtraining.com/YouTube. And if you want to see more videos of GTM training, then subscribe to our channel now. I'm Julian, till next time. So now let's get started with scroll tracking within GTM. And what we'll do in this little tutorial is implement a custom HTML tag, which will basically act as our event listener in Google Tag Manager. And now let's get started talking about bounce rate. So the bounce rate is often seen as this metric to evaluate landing pages. So does the traffic that hits my page actually stick around or leave the page? There's actually a little bit of a problem here with the bounce rate, because the way that is defined in Google Analytics. Let's have a look. So a bounce in